So the Google Pixel 7a has been getting a lot of hype and creating a lot of excitement, basically because it's the sequel to what was pretty much the best mid-range phone of last year, the Google Pixel 6a. But the Pixel 7a is not the only A phone you should be considering. You didn't think Samsung would miss out on this party, did you? Samsung launched their own mid-range phone just a couple weeks ago, the Galaxy A54. Now these two phones deliver an incredible experience, great specs, great cameras across the board, basically almost flagship level experiences, but they do so at half the price of flagship phones. Instead of $900 or $1,000 flagships, these are $450 for the Galaxy A54 and $499 for the Pixel 7a. So $50 more expensive, but with that, you get a couple extra features, and we'll talk about that throughout the video. But in essence, they both offer a lot for that price, but they do so in very, very different ways. So why don't we take a look at these? Let's take a deeper look at the two best mid-range phones of 2023 and figure out what's similar and what's different, and ultimately, which of these two is actually the best mid-range phone of 2023. Now I want to start off with the design of these. First of all, they are both IP67 water resistant, which is fantastic. Again, that's a flagship quality that until very recently, we really didn't see in mid-range phones. The A54 is a little bit taller, very slightly heavier, but that's mostly related to having a larger display and a larger battery. When you're actually holding the phones, you'll notice the Pixel feels a little slimmer because it has more of a rounded edge on the back, whereas the Galaxy tends to be boxier, matching the aesthetic and design of the flagships, the S23, S23 Ultra, that whole lineup. And so with that, you do get a little bit of a sharper edge on the Galaxy. I think the Pixel is a little bit more comfortable to hold, but the Galaxy, I think I would be less likely to drop, again, because of that boxy design. But as far as materials go, the kind of interesting choices here. The A54 has a plastic frame all the way around, but has a glass front and back. Now, it's Gorilla Glass 5, so it's pretty durable and relatively scratch resistant as well. The Pixel 7a has an aluminum frame around, so a better frame material, but it has a plastic back, or some people call it a glastic back. It's made of plastic, but it looks and feels a lot like glass. So it's not quite as premium, but they're both very glossy, and to the untrained eye, you wouldn't notice the difference. There are 4 colors of each of these, as is typical of Pixels. They're a little bit more muted, except the coral one, which is definitely not a muted color, and then the Galaxy ones are a little bit more vibrant. Otherwise, the phones are pretty similar. We'll talk about the displays in just a second, but one last physical design choice I want to point out is that the Pixel does have wireless charging, which is absolutely huge. It's probably the biggest win for the Pixel 7a, in my opinion. I always have my phones on a wireless charger. Now, not everyone does this. Some people just plug in at night, and that's fine. But I have a wireless charger in my car, at my desk, and I never plug my phone in. It's just so much more convenient to set it there and have it charged. So big win for the Pixel there. But the Galaxy A54 has an SD card slot. You can put a micro SD card in here for expandable storage, and that's something you don't see on the Pixel. So, okay, the displays. This one is obviously going to be kind of a big differentiator between these. We have a 6.1-inch display on the Pixel and 6.4 inches on the Galaxy, and pretty much across the board, a better display on the Galaxy. Still decent on the Pixel, but you're getting 90 Hz refresh rate on the Pixel versus adaptive 120 on the Galaxy. If you're looking for it, it's different, but ultimately they're both smooth and pretty quick. The A54 gets marginally brighter, and of course the screen technology is Super AMOLED compared to what the Pixel's using, which is just OLED. And ultimately, like, it's no surprise here. If there's only one thing that Samsung does really well, I've said this in pretty much every Samsung video I made, it is the displays. Samsung crushes it with displays. Nobody really even comes close, and it's no surprise that the Galaxy A54 has a better display. But if there's one thing that Pixels do really well, I'm going to shift in the focus here, it's cameras. Pixels have been doing a great job with cameras despite having smaller sensors for many years. They've had such great computational photography that for years and years, I've been saying the Pixel A series has been the best mid-range camera on the market. Now, this right here, they took a slightly different approach. So should we even talk about megapixels? I mean, what do you think? It's kind of just a number that doesn't always correlate to photo quality, but let's talk about it anyway. So the A54, we've got 3 different cameras, and we have 2 on the Pixel. So we have 64 megapixels on the main lens versus 50 on the main lens for the Galaxy, which is strange. Usually the Pixels have fewer megapixels and they focus way more on computational photography, but this is a new sensor for the Pixel. So we're gonna see how well they actually tuned it. I'll get into a full photo test, obviously. But the ultra wide, we have 13 megapixels on the Pixel and 12 megapixels on the Galaxy. So again, more megapixels on the Pixel. And then we have a 5 megapixel macro lens on the Galaxy and a beautiful empty space, not wasting it with the macro lens on the Pixel. The macro lens is ultimately such a waste of space. So let's get into a photo test. Obviously, I had to start off at Wawa, and you can see generally the Galaxy is more saturated. This flower photo is another great example of where the Pixel does look more natural, but sometimes if you want a more vibrant photo, the Galaxy does a great job. Here you can see the Galaxy is a little sharper and a little bit more contrasty, but in other situations, the Pixel tends to be more consistent with lighting, with color, with contrast, and looks more real in my opinion. However, the front-facing camera, I think the dynamic range was a little bit better on the Galaxy, and furthermore, the front-facing camera was definitely better when it came to portrait mode. As you can see, the cutout on the Galaxy was way, way better, and the portrait mode on the rear side was also way better on the Galaxy. But summarizing the cameras, I think the front-facing camera on the Galaxy was better, but the rear cameras were better across the board on the Pixel, with the exception of portrait mode, which has a better cutout on the Galaxy. You can see really a pretty similar performance by both of them. As far as stability goes, if I jump around, I'd say maybe the Pixel is a little bit more stable, but it's going to be easier to see in the final video here. Details, similar. Again, color and everything really is across the board not a whole lot different between these two. They're both able to shoot 4K, of course, on the rear camera. Now, the real test is the zoom transition. As we zoom out to, there's no smooth transition there. If we zoom in, we can go up to 10x. So the Pixel does have a nice smooth transition for video there, and you can go up to 5x. Now the colors are actually a lot more different here on the front-facing camera, as is the dynamic range. Again, I think the Pixel's pulling ahead here, but yeah, it just look a little too dark on the Galaxy. But let me know what you think. These, again, fortunately are both able to shoot 4K. That's something that we didn't always see on the front-facing cameras of mid-rangers. So I'm pretty happy with both of them, but like I said, it's a little bit, maybe if I tap on my face, see if I can brighten it up. I have to like manually brighten it. It's a little bit, if you can manually brighten it, it actually looks pretty good on the Galaxy. Then the selfie lens, we've got 13 megapixels on the Pixel and 32 on the Galaxy, but my biggest complaint here, Samsung always does this. They put this shiny ring around the camera on the front. I don't know if it's to get you to not like the A series and buy their more expensive S series. I don't know if it's functional. I don't know what it does, but it's so annoying. It's such an eyesore when you look at the screen. Like having that shiny ring around the camera. Like, come on, Samsung, at least like paint it black or something. Whatever, we can get over that. Let's talk about what's under the hood and the general speed of these phones. So let's get into an app open test. It's kind of the easiest way for me to demonstrate some speed differences here. The Pixel 7a has the exact same chip that we see in the Pixel 7 Pro, which I've been using as my everyday phone for the past, I don't know, what's it been, like 5, 6 months, 7 months by now? A pretty long time. And it's a fast chip. Like, it's not the fastest on the market, but it's really smooth and really fast and way more than enough for a mid-range phone. It's definitely more powerful than the Galaxy A54 chip, but as you can see, when you're opening apps, they both do a pretty similar-ish job. Definitely a hair faster on the Pixel, and if you're doing any kind of gaming, that would really extend, like you'd notice it there as well. So now, as a side note, I'm thinking about using the Pixel 7a as my everyday phone just to see what it's like to use, and I'll probably make a 1 month later video, but if you have any ideas about what I should compare this to, or any other tests I should do with this, do leave a comment down below, and be sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss that video when it comes out. And then as far as RAM and storage, we have one model for the Pixel and 2 models for the Galaxy. So Pixel, you've got 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, pretty standard, exactly what I like to see. The Galaxy, you have 6 gigs of RAM, which is kind of light, and 128 gigabytes of storage. Or if you want to pay more money, you get 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. So that's kind of one of the big things that I noticed when you're looking at the prices between these. Like, yeah, the Galaxy's cheaper, but you're getting less RAM and you're getting a slower processor compared to the Pixel. And if you want the same amount of RAM, they end up being a similar price anyway. The battery, however, is better on the Samsung Galaxy A54. We're getting a larger battery on here, and we're getting a less demanding chip. So, I mean, obviously you do have a larger and brighter display, but in general, you should be getting a substantially better battery life on the Galaxy. The A54 also gets 4 Android versions of updates, whereas the Pixel 7a only gets 3, which is kind of mind-blowing because Google owns Android and Google owns Pixel, and like their own phone doesn't get as many updates. Samsung, obviously, they cut a deal with Samsung, but still, like, I always thought that was the strangest thing. They both do, however, get 5 years of security updates, so if you're cool with eventually, like, not getting the latest Android version, but you still want security updates, like, they're both on the same page there. Kind of summarizing the positives of both of these, the Pixel 7a, you're getting the Pixel interface, which a lot of people really like. Personally, I'm a fan of the lightweight, very snappy, no bloatware, only what you need, and they give you a lot of great features specifically for calling, which sounds like a weird thing to care about, but whether you're on hold with like the IRS, it'll give you, hold for you. It can give you options to just tap instead of listening to the menu options. And it also has call screen. Like, it's got a lot of great things in there. In addition, the Pixel has a better camera system. It has a faster chip, it has wireless charging, and it's basically the Pixel 7, which is more expensive. Like, this is, like, they call it a 7a, but this is basically the Pixel 7. And then the A54 has its own advantages as well, being a better display, better longevity with those extra updates, a better battery life, a more premium glass back on here, and of course, Samsung features. I mentioned that the Pixel UI really is nice, but Samsung has a lot of their own features in here as well. Samsung packs One UI full of their own features, and I've made videos comparing those in the past. So that's my summary between the Pixel 7a and the Galaxy A54. Easily two of the best mid-range phones on the market this year, but when you're deciding between them, unless something in this video that I mentioned really resonated with you, but if you're still unsure, just look at the sales. I'll have links down below to the best sales for either one of them, and I would say whichever one is on a better sale, just get that one. They're fantastic phones, just slightly different approaches. So let me know what you think between the Galaxy A54 and the Pixel 7 Pro. Which one do you like better and why? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. I'm Mike O'Brien. I'll see you in the next one.